There is something influencing your thoughts, even when you believe you are thinking alone. Something invisible, silent, constant. A kind of psychological current flowing through millions of people at the same time. The collective mind. Most people believe their opinions are entirely their own, that their desires were born spontaneously, that their choices are independent. But few stop to ask, where did this thought come from? Because many thoughts are not born within you. They arrive to you through culture, through social media, through collective fear, through trends, through environments. And little by little, without realizing it, you begin to absorb emotional states that were never truly yours. Collective anxiety, collective urgency, collective outrage, collective comparison, emotions spread. Today, a person wakes up anxious about problems they never directly experienced, feels fear over distant events, feels inadequate while looking at edited lives, feels pressured to follow rhythms that make no sense for their own soul. Because the collective mind creates invisible pressure, pressure to produce, to be seen, to have opinions, to belong. And those who do not follow the flow begin to feel guilty, as if they are falling behind. But behind what? Perhaps the greatest power of the collective mind is precisely this: making you live without questioning, repeating patterns, consuming distractions, chasing desires you never deeply examined. The crowd creates direction, and when many people walk the same path, it feels dangerous to stop. But there is a problem. The collective mind rarely favors awareness. It favors repetition, because conscious people question things, and questioning interrupts automatism. Perhaps that is why silence feels so uncomfortable today. In silence, you begin to realize how deeply conditioned you are. You notice how many fears are not yours, how many opinions you inherited, how many desires were implanted. The collective mind also shapes identity. It tells you what success is, what beauty is, what value is, what failure is. And those who do not fit the pattern often feel inadequate. But perhaps the problem is not you. Perhaps the problem lies in the collective standard that tries to turn individuality into conformity. The collective mind does not like what is different, because what is different threatens the pattern. That is why so many people hide who they truly are, to be accepted, to avoid judgment, to avoid exclusion. And so a society is created full of external presence, but empty of authenticity. Everyone connected, but few truly conscious. Speed is also part of this. Everything today is immediate. Fast information, fast reactions, fast conclusions. And a constantly accelerated mind loses depth. It reacts more than it observes, repeats more than it understands. And the less awareness there is, the easier it becomes to manipulate. Perhaps that is why it is so rare to find people who are truly present. People who think before repeating, who observe before reacting, who can be alone without needing collective noise to feel alive. Because stepping out of the collective mind requires courage. The courage to disagree, to slow down, to refuse certain emotional currents. It requires enduring the discomfort of thinking for yourself. And that can bring loneliness. Because when you begin to see clearly, some superficial connections stop making sense. But it also brings freedom, the freedom to consciously choose what enters your mind, what deserves your energy, what deserves your attention. Because attention is psychological nourishment. What you constantly consume begins to shape your inner state. And few people realize how emotionally programmed they are every single day. Perhaps awakening is not about completely abandoning the world, but about stopping the automatic absorption of everything, observing more, questioning more, being silent more, until you can distinguish what truly comes from you and what merely echoes from the crowd. Because in the end, the collective mind may influence you, but it does not have to define who you are. And perhaps true awareness begins the moment you stop following the noise and finally begin listening to yourself.